Hello class, welcome to this video on the day 2 midterm review. So let's go over the topic of partitioning line segments. So I'm just going to solve each problem in each block and that's it. I'm not going to piece the puzzle together. I'm just focusing on the problems, the content. So let's go ahead and answer this first question here. Find the missing endpoint. Let's call this number 1 and then I'll call this number 2 and go from there. So find the missing endpoint. We have the midpoint is -1, -4. The endpoint is 7, 4. Okay, so what we want to do is figure out the other endpoint. So remember what we want to do is we want to apply the midpoint formula here. To do the midpoint formula, you need to average the x coordinates and the y coordinates. So we don't know the other x coordinate. We only know one of the x coordinates, okay? We only know 7. So the formula for the midpoint here is going to be x plus 7 because we know 7 is a coordinate for the midpoint. We know what this endpoint is, but we don't know what this other one is, and we know the midpoint. So we're going to average the x coordinates together, which are these guys, divide that by 2, and that is going to equal to the x coordinate for the midpoint. So that's going to be equal to -1. And then we're going to do the same thing with the y coordinates. So we got y plus 4 divided by 2, and that has to equal the y coordinate of the midpoint, which is -4. Okay, those are my equations. So now I'm going to go ahead and solve it just like I usually would. Get rid of that 2 by multiplying by 2. Whatever you do on one side, do on the other side. Do the same thing for this equation. So we got x plus 7 equals -2. Subtract 7, x equals -9. Now we'll do this equation. For y plus 4 is -8. Subtract 4, y equals -12. So my coordinates for my endpoint are -9, -12. Okay, that takes care of problem number 1. Let's do number 2. Partition A to B in a 2 to 3 ratio. So we have 2 to 3 ratio, which means that the fraction that we're going to use is 2 over 5. Remember, you add 2 plus 3 and we get a total of 5. That becomes our denominator. So we want to partition A to B in at 2/5. And we have our two coordinates, A, -3, -4. And B is 5, 0. Okay, so, and we said our fraction is 2/5 according to the ratio. All right, so again, what we're going to do is, usually what I do is I set up the table. So we got the total distance, we have the moving distance. So let's do subtract the x values here. Remember, final minus initial. So my B is my final. So let's do the x first. 5 minus -3 is 8. Let's do the y coordinates. 0 minus -4 is 4. Now we're going to multiply each of these numbers by the fraction 2/5. To multiply them, remember you had to convert 8 as a fraction, same thing as 4, by putting them over an invisible 1. Multiply straight across, we get 16 over 5. And here for the bottom fraction, we get 8 over 5. These are both decimals. 16 divided by 5 is 3.2. 8 divided by 5. 8 goes in the 5 one time. Remainder of 3, so this is going to be 1.6. All right, so we got, this is going to be positive. Both of these numbers are positive, which means you're going to add both of them. You're going to add this to the x coordinate. You're going to add this to the y coordinate. You're going to do that for the initial, because you're starting at A. and then you're moving it by that amount, okay? So if you start at A, you're going to go ahead and add 3.2 there, add 1.6 there. That will be my final coordinates. We have P negative 3 plus the 3.2 that we found, negative 4 plus the 1.6 that we found. It's going to give you 0.2, negative 2.4. And that's your answer for number 2. All right, so this one, I'll call this number 3. Partition A to B in a 3:2 ratio. So we got A is 3:4, B is 6:10. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and delete this so that I can start fresh. Okay, so number 3. We have a 3:2 ratio. Okay, so if we have a 3:2 ratio and it says you're going from A to B, so A is your starting point. So that means you're doing a 3:2 ratio. You have a total of 5 pieces. So your fraction here is 3/5 total pieces. So my fraction is 3/5. Okay. Now let's do our total distance and then our moving distance. Remember, final minus initial. Let's do the x's first. 6 minus 3 is 3. Let's do the y's next. Final minus initial. Multiply those two numbers by your fraction. Put them over an invisible 1. Multiply them by 3/5. Multiply straight across. 3 times 3 is 9, so this is 9/5. 6 times 3 is 18. This is 18/5. 9/5 is 1.8. 18/5 is should be 3.6. These are both positive, so you're going to be adding them. You're going to add them to what? You're going to add them to A, because A is your starting point. So my final coordinate is 3 plus 1.8, 4 plus 3.6. So we have here 4.8 and 7.6. All right, that takes care of number 3. Let's do number 4, finding missing endpoint. Another endpoint problem. So the midpoint is 3, -5. The endpoint is 3, -3. Again, drawing that picture, we don't know one of the endpoints. We only know one of them. And we know that the midpoint is 3, -5. So again, we're going to average the x coordinates first. So x plus 3 divided by 2 is equal to the midpoint. And average the y coordinates. Y plus -3 over 2 equals the y coordinate here. And then we'll solve it. Times 2 on both sides. So we get x plus 3 equals 6, which means x equals 3. This one is y plus -3, which is the same thing as y minus 3, equals -10, which means y has to equal, add 3 to both sides. So it's going to be -7. Okay, put these together. Your coordinates are 3, -7. Okay, that takes care of number 4. I'm going to go ahead and delete these now. Start fresh. Number 5. What ratio does P partition E to F? So we have E is 3, -4. That's F, and this is P. So we want the ratio. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on the x coordinates. So here the x coordinates are, well, let's put them in order. So the first x coordinate is point E. which is at an x-coordinate of 3. The next coordinate is p, which is a value of 5. And then the last coordinate is f, x value of 13. So notice we can see that this is partitioned in such a way that this is 2 away and this is 8 away. 13 minus 5 is 8. 5 minus 3 is 2. So this is a 2 to 8 ratio, which means that it is a 1 to 4 ratio because we can divide both of these by 2. Okay, so my final answer is that it's a 1 to 4 ratio. Okay, that takes care of number 5. Let's do number 6 here. We want to partition this and 1 to 3 ratio, and we're going to need the coordinates for A and B. Okay, so let's go ahead and find the coordinates for A and B right now. Coordinates for A are 5, -5. Coordinates for B are 1 and 3. Okay, so I'm going to write those coordinates down. Let's see here. A is, okay. And we want to do it in a 1 to 3 ratio. Okay, so 1 to 3 ratio means that we have a total of 4 pieces, right? And so our fraction is going to be 1 over 4. So that's going to be the fraction of partition that I'm going to be using. And remember, it depends on if we're going from A to B. So actually, yeah, we are going from A to B in this case, and we're doing at a 1 to 3 ratio. Okay, so that means that A is my starting point, and this is my end point. Okay, so final minus initial, B minus A. Let's do our total distance and our move distance. X final minus initial. 1 minus 5 is -4. Final minus initial. 3 minus -5 is 8. Next, multiply them by the fraction. Put these over in invisible 1, multiply straight across. This will be -4 divided by 4, which is -1. 8 times 1 is 8. 4 times 1 is 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2. So you're going to go 1 left and 2 up. So you're going to do that from A. So remember, point A is 5, -5, right? So you're going to go ahead from your new coordinate. It's going to be at 5 minus 1. And -5 plus 2. So my new coordinate is 4, -3. And we can go ahead and we can actually find that right here. So 4, -3 is right here. So that's the partition, which is at a 1 to 3 ratio. Okay, let's do the next problem. We'll call this one number 7 right here. Partition it in a 1 to 1 ratio, and those are the coordinates. Okay, so we wanted to do a 1 to 1 ratio. A is -3, 4. B is 7, 6. Okay, so if they want a 1 to 1 ratio, then that means that if you have a line segment AB, you want to simply cut it in half because it's going to be the same amount on each side. It's going to be 1 piece on each side. So this is essentially saying find the midpoint. And so instead of doing the complicated calculations that we normally would do with the total distance and the move distance, it's simply easier to just find the midpoint for this example. Okay, so we are going to do the midpoint. The midpoint formula, remember, is x1 plus x2 divided by 2, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. So that's what we're going to do. So we have here the x coordinates and the y coordinates divided by 2. Okay, so negative 3 plus 7 is 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 4 plus 6 is 10. 10 divided by 2 is 5. And that is my answer. Pretty straightforward. Okay, number 8, find the missing endpoint. So we got 5, negative 7, negative 3, negative 8. 5, negative 7 is my midpoint. Okay, so we're going to set up the equation. Remember, the midpoint, the answer is equal to the midpoint. So we have here x plus negative 3 over 2 has to equal the midpoint. And for the y, you're going to average the y, so y plus negative 8 divided by 2 is equal to negative 7. And that's how you set up the equation for the missing endpoint. Multiply both sides by 2. These are two separate equations. So we got x plus negative 3. X plus negative 3 is the same thing as x minus 3. 2 times 5 is 10. Y plus negative 8 is y minus 8. Negative 7 times 2 is negative 14. So x here is 13. Y here is, you add 8 to both sides and you get negative 6. So put them together, you have 13, negative 6. All right, number 9. What ratio does P partition L to O? Okay, so we have L's negative 1, 1, O is 7, 5, P is 1, 2. Again, focus on the x coordinates only. So the first coordinate is L at negative 1. The second coordinate is P, which is at an x value of 1. O is at an x value of 7. So what's the difference between negative 1 and 1? Well, that's going to be 2. Difference between 1 and 7 is 6. So from L to O, we are at a 2 to 6 ratio. That's the same thing as dividing by 2 on both sides there. Same thing as a 1 to 3 ratio. Well, that's our answer for number 9, 1 to 3. Again, another missing endpoint problem. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. I'm going to go through these faster as time goes on because they're the same type of problems. All right, so remember it's equal to the midpoint. So we have x plus 2 divided by 2 is equal to negative 8. Y plus 6 is divided by 2 is equal to the midpoint, 3, times 2 on both sides. X plus 2 equals negative 16. These are two separate equations. This cancels. Y plus 6 is equal to 6. So y has to be 0. 0 plus 6 is 6. This right here, subtract 2 on both sides. X equals negative 18. So you put these together, negative 18 and 0. Okay, that takes care of number 10. Let's do number 11, which is this problem right here. So our fraction is 2/3 that we want to partition. So since they tell us that fraction already, we're going to be using that. We don't have to convert it to a fraction because it's already a fraction. So we don't have to worry about the partition stuff, the ratio. We do need to know these coordinates though, so let's find them first. Point C is at negative 1, 7. Point D is at 5, 1. Okay, so I'm going to write those coordinates real quick. And it says you're partitioning it from C to D, so C is first and D is last. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the total distance and the move distance. So we're going to do the x's and y's. Remember, final minus initial. Final minus initial, 1 minus 7 is negative 6. X values, final minus initial. 5 minus negative 1 is 6. Now multiply those two numbers by the fraction that they gave us, 2/3. Multiply straight across. So that's going to be 12 over 3, which is 4. Negative 12 over 3, which is negative 4. So remember that we start at C, the starting point, right? So that means we're going to go ahead and add 4 there, subtract 4 from that starting point. So my ending point is negative 1 minus 4, or plus 4, because we're adding 4, that's a positive 4. And then 7 minus 4. So our final coordinate is 3, negative 3. Okay, that takes care of number 11. Let's go to number 12. Call this number 12. Find the distance from A to B. Okay, we haven't done this type of problem, so I'll slow down on this one. This is a new type of problem. Okay, so find the distance. So remember, to find the distance, we use the distance formula. So the distance formula is distance equals square root. You're going to subtract the x coordinates, square them, add that to subtract the y coordinates squared. And that's your distance formula. So all we got to do is apply that formula. Square root, subtract those coordinates. So negative 1 minus 2 squared plus, subtract these coordinates now, 2 minus 5 squared. Then we do the math. Negative 1 minus 2 is negative 3, so negative 3 squared. 2 minus 5 is also negative 3. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. So we got 9 plus 9, which is square root of 18. And you can do that on the calculator and get a decimal. We get 4.24, so about 4.2. Okay, so that's your distance for number 12. Okay, number 13, another ratio problem. What ratio does P partition W to V? Okay, so again, let's focus on the x. It doesn't matter if you do x or y, by the way. As long as you focus on one particular coordinate, you can list these in order from smallest to largest. So here, in this case, W will be first at a value of negative 5. V would be, or P would be next at a value of negative 2, followed by V at an x value of 4. So the distance between negative 5 and negative 2 is 3. The distance between negative 2 and 4 is 6. So we can see here this is a 3 to 6 ratio, but of course we can reduce it, divide by 3 top and bottom, and you're going to get a 1 to 2 ratio. Pretty straightforward. All right, we got another partition problem. We got a couple partition problems, 14 and 15. We got another distance problem, and we got a final ratio problem. Okay, so let's go ahead and do it real quick. 14, partition 1/3 from C to D. Let's write down the coordinates for C. It's kind of sideways, but let's do the best we can. This is a value of negative 1, and this is a value of 7. So C is negative 1, 7. D is 5. That's a 5 and 1. And we want to do a 1/3 ratio. Okay, so it says we're going from C to D. So D is final and C is initial. Okay, so let's do the total distance. Let's do the x's, final minus initial. One minus 7, final minus initial. Put these over invisible 1, multiply by the fraction 1/3. Multiply straight across. We got 6 over 3, which is 2. Negative 6 over 3, which is negative 2. All right, so remember we start out from our starting point, which is C. That C is my initial. And we're going to move, that's what it's called the move distance. We're going to move this plus 2 and then minus 2. Plus 2 in the x, minus 2 in the y. We get 1, 5. And it's not going to be point C, it's going to be point P, a new point. And point is 1, 5. All right, partition A to B in a 2-to-1 ratio. So that's 2-to-1 like this, which means you're going to convert this to a fraction. Let's remember, use the first number and then do the total. The total is 3, so it's going to be 2/3. Okay, we're going from A to B, so B is my final. So let's go ahead and do the total distance real quick, just to, because this is the same type of problem we've been doing. We got x, final minus initial. It's going to be 9. Final minus initial. Multiply that by the fraction that we found, 2/3. Put these over 1, multiply straight across. So that's 18 over 3, which is 6. 6 over 3, which is 2. These are both positive. So we're going to add them to the starting point of A. So our new point is the starting point for A. For x is negative 3 plus 6. And then the starting point of negative 2 plus 2. So it's going to be 3, 0. All right, number 16. Find the distance from A to B. All right, again, remember the distance formula is x2 minus x1 squared, y2 minus y1 squared. Add them together, take the square root. Subtract those two, 7 minus negative 5 squared. Subtract those two, negative 8 minus 1 squared. And when we do the math. So this is going to be a positive. 7 plus 5 is 12. That's going to be negative 9. 12 times 12 is 144. 9 times 9 is 81. So you get 225. The square root of 225 is 15. So the distance is 15. All right, and then we'll finish off with the ratio, and that will be it, guys. So 17, partition, so we have from D to E. So D is negative 4, negative 7. 12, 5. Okay, so again, this time let's focus on the Y. We've always done the X in here, but this time let's do the Y, just to switch it up. So on the Y, on the number line, D goes first for the Y values at negative 7, followed by P, which is at positive 2, followed by E, which is at positive 5. Okay, so how far away is negative 7 and 2? Negative 7 and 2 are a distance of 9 away. 2 and 5 are a distance of 3 away. So that means we have a ratio of 9 to 3. Let's divide this by 3 top and bottom, or on each side. So our ratio is 3 to 1. All right, guys, that's going to do it for the video. I hope you found this useful, and as usual, I'll see you in the next one.